Oklahoma's the type team that can give Alabama problems because they can get Alabama to play in the mud with them. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma, to me, is a little bit better version of Mississippi State, and Alabama struggled with Mississippi State in the game before Oklahoma. And I thought Mississippi State gave Oklahoma a blueprint on kind of how to slow them down. Mississippi State played them close twice. They lost at State. Alabama beat them. But it was close for most of the game, and Alabama pulled away late. And then State led for most of the game in Tuscaloosa, and then didn't win it there at the end. But I think Oklahoma is a similarly built team to Mississippi State, all defense all the time, want to get you in a slugfest, and Alabama doesn't like that. And when Oklahoma can score like they did, and Alabama's defense is a little deficient like it was at Oklahoma. That can happen. So I think it was a surprising result. I wouldn't say a shocking result because that's the type team, if they can get Alabama to play at their pace, which is hard to do. But Mississippi State was able to do it. Oklahoma is able to do it. That's how Tennessee's going to have to do it when they play. They're going to have to get that thing in the 60s to beat Alabama. There's just a few teams who can do that. And, that's the magic of March, as they say, too. Alabama gets a matchup with one of those teams in the NCAA tournament, and it could be, it could be tough for them. But Alabama's still a great team. I still think they're one of the, the 4 or 5 best teams, or certainly I think the best team in the SEC. We'll see how they bounce back from this. But sometimes as a coach, it sucks. But sometimes you need something like this to refocus everybody. And I'm not saying that's what happened, because you guard against, you try to guard against this type stuff, and fans are like, well, how, they got it. Well, it's not quite that easy when you've got people in everybody's ear. Winning attracts a lot of shit. I used to say that all the time. Like, winning attracts shit too, because they're saying, yeah, y'all are winning, but you should be getting more shots, and you should be doing this, and you should be doing that. And I mean, you got problems when you win as well. And, sometimes things can get out of kilter a little bit with the kids and their folks. And sometimes when you lose like this, you can go back and say, hey, maybe my way was working a little bit better. Why don't we get back to what we were doing before when we won like 10 straight? Maybe that would work pretty well. And so, I think this could be good for Alabama. And quite frankly, I talked about it last week, when you're at Alabama's level, they're in the NCAA tournament. They're probably going to be a 1 or a 2 seed. I mean, going on the road to Oklahoma's like 3 times as motivated as Alabama was. It was the same thing that happened to us last year. Like, we were going to be in the NCAA tournament last year. We went to TCU, and we got them springboarded to get them into the NCAA tournament. And they were on the outside of the bubble, and they played so desperate. And, our guys were ready to play, but there was just a desperation where TCU just absolutely had to have the game. I mean, we needed it as well, but yeah. Penson was still, so you factor in that Oklahoma really needed that signature win for their resume, because they got to go back to slog through the Big 12. And I can't assume Alabama wasn't as motivated to play them as they were to play Kentucky and some of these SEC teams. But I think Coach Oats, I'd look for them to bounce back strong this week. I think, certainly after the close game against Mississippi State and the blowout loss, I think he's got their attention. I think they'll refocus everybody. I think they'll get back to playing how they were. But this was certainly a difficult matchup for them, even under normal circumstances. This is the type team that could give them problems.
More on the matchup thing that you mentioned, because as you said, Alabama's probably going to be a top seed in this tournament. But this is a great example of, look, matchups.
Like for Alabama, if they're a 1 seed, they would hate to see St. Mary's on the 8-9 line. Now, St. Mary's is going to probably be a 4 or 5. They'd hate to see a St. Mary's in the Sweet 16. That's the type team that could just give them absolute fits. So there's certain type teams, like stylistically, I guess Oklahoma would be one in like an 8-9 game that could give them fits. If they won they're going to win the 116 game. But there's certain teams that are just really, really poor matchups. Oklahoma would be one for Alabama. St. Mary's comes to mind as somebody that'd be a 4 or 5 seed that would just be could be a nightmare matchup for them. So, I mean, it's, a lot of it comes down. That's what the tournament is. I mean, the best team doesn't always win the tournament because you got to win 6 games, but a lot of it is matchups. And that's what I used to always say is, man, if we could you just got to consistently get there. And if you consistently get there, one of the years the matchups are going to favor you. Some of the years the matchups suck. Like you go, God, that's the one team I wouldn't like. My last year at VCU, we got beat by St. Mary's. We could have played St. Mary's 10 times. We'd have never beaten them. Never beaten them. Like they were just way better than us, more physical. I mean, we couldn't move their 7-foot big kid. I mean, it was just a nightmare. And the year before we got great matchups. We played Oregon State, who we could have beaten almost every time, even though they were from the Pac-12. I mean, a lot of it's just the matchups that you get and how and how it goes. But you just got to keep giving yourself opportunities with good seeds, with top 5 or 6 seeds. If you keep giving yourself cracks at it and keep giving yourself those opportunities, eventually it's going to break your way. But that's for every team. We're talking about Alabama. I mean, there's every team out there who's on the top line has somebody that could give them major issues.